Hello, welcome to the Regional Trans Podcast. This podcast is recorded on the lands of the Jaja Wurrung, and I pay my deepest respects to their elders, past and present. Sovereignty was never ceded, and we acknowledge that First Nations, sister girls, brother boys, trans, and gender diverse people have always been a part of these lands, stories, and communities. My name is Kay Kosasi, and today we are joining you from Thorn Harbour Country in Bendigo, where trans and gender diverse people from across regional Victoria have come together for a day of connection, storytelling, and shared learning. In this series, every episode is shaped by the participants themselves, their insights, their questions, and their lived experiences. Our aim is to amplify regional voices, celebrate our resilience, and build a deeper understanding of what it means to be trans in rural and regional communities. We'll be diving into personal stories, community wisdom, moments of vulnerability, and moments of joy. We invite you to listen with curiosity, care, and with an interest in growing a deeper awareness of the trans lived experience, recognizing that people's experiences are diverse, complex, and valid. Regional Trans Podcast Series 2 has been supported through Victoria's Pride, a partnership between the Victorian government and Midsummer. This episode, we are talking about safety, advocacy, and social change. And we're specifically discussing how trans communities respond to the rising transphobia and also what allies can do and the role of activism and advocacy. So what changes have everybody here noticed in how the trans communities respond to rising transphobia? Anything you experience locally or just overall in the world? Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, my first response to the rise in transphobia is to flip off any piece of Harry Potter media that I see whenever I enter the shops. Yeah, take that.
Yeah, it's certainly a great response to those who are being transphobic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'd also just say, if you support trans people, you really shouldn't be consuming anything Harry Potter, honestly. It supports someone who has used the money from those proceeds to do awful stuff to the trans community.
And I think on that topic, it highlights the importance of being an active ally and active advocator for trans lives and trans people in general. I think you have to actively select what you're consuming and what you're looking at and what you like and dislike in order to be able to be a strong supporter of trans people.
I think it's important to also highlight the positives as well. In recent months, we've seen a lot of support from the Victorian government. The LGBTQI Commission has done a lot of work. Our community's done a lot of work. The inclusion of the LGBTQI identities into the anti-vilification law was a big step for us. And more recently, small things like changing our name and our gender markers on our birth certificates has now become free. You know, we're seeing a lot of positive support coming from the Victorian government, from the leaders within our community. And I think that's really important to highlight because that's where we change this. We change this at the top. And that's something that we haven't seen over I haven't seen over the 4 decades of my life. So,
absolutely, and I totally agree that change from the top is so valuable. But I also want to add that all of us can be allies, and all of us can make change. And I think that the Harry Potter discussion is quite a heated debate, and I'm sure there's people that listening will be like, but I love Harry Potter. But, there's, I totally agree with that. If we are seeing behaviours that are clearly transphobic, what can we do? We can boycott, and we can speak out, and we can call it out. And I absolutely love that the government are doing initiatives that are showing trans inclusion and that trans people have a right to be here, because that's what we need, and we need that at all levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also had the other incident recently with the forum with TGV and a couple of the other organisations taking a stand firm against those conversations that then fuel and lead to that further hate against our community. So
There certainly seems to be a lot of it online. Is that how are we feeling about where is this coming from, and how are you being impacted personally by this? Like where is it coming into your world, EJ?
Yeah, I definitely think online is the biggest perpetrator of a lot of different things in my general day-to-day life, at least. Luckily, in my work and in my social circles, I'm not greatly impacted by transphobia, and I generally am able to live my life pretty peacefully. And, you know, I try to have advocacy where I can, but the huge thing I think for me is absolutely online and vilification and that hatred that's just very angry from the whole world that's being put onto this platform.
So one thing I did notice is that for a lot of this kind of behavior that we are seeing, like we are seeing a surge of online hate, but it's coming from a very small group of people. And so we can see that very clearly when we look at like the differences in attendance of like queer friendly events, right? I got to watch as a trans flag raising in my hometown, in my current hometown. We gave the community maybe a week's notice. 300 people showed up. The TERFs decided that they wanted to try and do their event, and they had 6 months notice. Not 20 people showed up, including online. We often give it a lot more credence than probably it's due. With what they're saying, like, yes, it's incredibly personal, but there's not as many of them. We have a lot more support for us, generally speaking, than people realize.
Yeah.
Like, I've watched as petition after petition against the state government in Queensland has come out because of their actions in blocking gender-affirming care for trans youth. They're 15,000, if not more, on any given petition. And actually, there's a new one coming for that very, very shortly for those in Queensland. So, yeah.
Beautiful. We'll come to Tommy.
Yeah, I have to reiterate what was said over here as before. I'm finding that it's very much online. And again, it's a very small percentage of people. I myself, I don't hide within our community. I'm a proud trans woman. I play cricket. A lot of people know that. And I go around my life and there's no incidents. Like I go shopping and I'm loved in my community. And it is really just that online hate that's fueling it. But I feel that at a local level, we're stomping it out.
I think in response to the flag raising and the TERF event and everything, I think that a lot more people are not open with how hateful they are. Like they're very able to do that behind a screen where they have anonymity, but a lot of them won't stand by their opinions and actually show up and show that they're such a hateful and unaccepting person. So like there are a lot of them, but there's not a lot of courageous ones.
Yeah,
warriors.
I want to add to that, but I'll let Aaron say something, and then
On the topic of like the amount of people that come out and support us, I also attended a protest against the Queensland puberty blocker ban, and the amount of turnout was incredible.
It was a couple of thousand in Melbourne, wasn't it?
There was, yeah. It was right outside the Melbourne Library, I believe it's called.
Sorry, turnout pro or against?
Pro, sorry.
Okay, great.
What I'm trying to say is that there are so many people out there who will support you as well. It can be really scary, especially because it signal boosts so much on social media and on in the news. But there are so many people who are here to support you and back you, and that not all of them are queer.
Yeah.
A lot of them are just people who are like, no, it's not fair that this is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It really has become a trend, hasn't it? Like, I think people think they're cool to hate us.
Well, what I was going to add to what you were saying is that there's this fear that people have, which is around appropriate behavior. So when you're in person, people don't want to be seen as being the transphobic or the person who's being nasty or cruel to somebody. So they're quiet in person. But when they're online, they seem to have this boldness about them where all of those etiquettes and values, these community values and personal values seem to be lost. And then they get really vicious online. Whereas when you're face to face with somebody, they're just not like that.
I think it's because deep down they know what they're doing is nasty.
Yeah.
Like they know they're wrong, but they still...
I absolutely would agree to that.
And I think you'll find that they're not just attacking us as our identity. You'll find that that'll then flow into other forms of bullying towards other people as well.
For sure.
You know, it's that type of person that does that. They're the keyboard warrior, and, you know, how do we deal with that as a society as a whole, as opposed to just, you know, us as being part of the rainbow community trying to deal with it?
Yeah, on the top, going back to them being so emboldened online, I think the reason is that a lot of right-wing people and groups and transphobes are able to find their echo chamber very, very easily online. I mean, there are entire groups dedicated to this, and they may not have as many people as the groups about, you know, supporting us and organizing protests and such. But it is still, they're emboldened because they feel like, even if it isn't actually true, they're surrounded by people who secretly agree with them. And that's not the case, I find.
In relation to the comment about like keyboard warriors too, the anonymity of online spaces, where if your name isn't attached to it, you're generally given a little bit more freedom to say whatever you think. But if the moment that people can associate who that is to a person, that has ramifications on people, right? For a lot of folks, that's a violation of their work's social media policies. That can end up with people being let go from their job simply because they're making a statement that is quite transphobic.
Yeah.
In terms of like echo chambers and stuff like that, that's what social media is designed to do. Mm-hmm. Social media is designed to show you the content that you agree with. And so it is designed in such a way that it builds echo chambers, and you will only ever see content, generally speaking, that agrees with you, not that disagrees with you. Because if you get too annoyed with content because you're constantly seeing something that you're disagreeing with, you will leave the platform, and they want your time. So social media is incentivized in such a way that they are encouraging even fringe beliefs, because it makes people feel like they have a community, even if that community is really small. Heck, we've seen this a lot with like Twitter. The amount of Twitter bots that are out there that are supporting fringe views, but that keeps people coming back for more and more.
That's actually where a lot of my recent success has come from. Like, I've had my videos taking off and bouncing into the millions of views, and it's because of the thousands of comments of people arguing over whether or not I deserve to go and, you know, whiz in the women's. Like, that's what's actually, I think, boosting it, is the algorithm is literally feeding my content to people who will be angry at it because they want the engagement, you know?
Clickbait.
Yeah.
And like, I've reached that point now where people have started to like talk about me in forums and Reddit and stuff like that. And I honestly sort of have had to struggle with like wondering how people could have the time or the devotion to giving their energy towards like trying to find faults and flaws and tearing into my life. But I think that the whole root of the issue is that misery loves company, and the transmission is for joy and happiness. So they don't even really have a problem with us. They just have a problem with people being happy, because they don't understand how everyone's not miserable like them.
They're not happy themselves.
We'll just let Aaron wanted to add something to that, and then we'll come to EJ.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a lot of the people that are emboldened and they do dedicate significant time. I mean, I have seen people who do hundreds of comments in a day on a post, on different posts.
They're terminally online.
Absolutely.
It's problematic.
I think even more than being just terminally online as well, it's also like you just said, there's a kind of jealousy as well. Like seeing trans people be happy, achieving things, having community.
How dare we?
How dare we? Absolutely. And seeing us have that and like, well, I want that.
Yeah.
I want to have community. I want to be a part of some movement. And then they pick the movement that's hateful. And the algorithm absolutely will just funnel them into it. I mean, there was a lot of controversies about YouTube specifically filtering people into the alt-right.
It keeps giving me Blair White. I'm like, bugger her off, please.
Yeah, I mean, I find if I even look something up briefly, it's like, oh, you care about baking. Let me show you something about how it's a woman's job to bake in the house or something. And it feels like so overeager to push people towards more extreme and more hateful views.
Yeah, we're being fed.
Yeah, I think talking about those echo chambers and talking about like the hatred online, it goes to show that a lot of people have a lot of self-hatred. I think a lot of these echo chambers and a lot of these people who are going online and being very angry have a lot of self-hatred and a lot of self-deprecation, and they turn that into hatred for other people to not show how sensitive they are about themselves. And I think the biggest thing I see, and I've met a few people who are currently in our community now who grew up in dangerous or hateful households, and were a hateful person themselves against a lot of different things, and had a lot of internalized transphobia, internalized homophobia, that once they shifted, they've then become a joyful and happy and loving person with themselves and with their community. And I think there are probably plenty of people in these groups who, not all of them will identify with trans or with like the wide range of attractions that people have, but they are using that hatred to block themselves from feeling the joy of living life to the fullest.
Such a valuable sentiment. And I am sure that we will have people watching this podcast who are watching because they're anti-trans. So just take that little bite away with you, self-reflect, and perhaps you might find some more joy in your life.
And take this away, get stuffed.
Tommy?
I want to touch back on this public restroom debate that seems to be propping up, because it does start that conversation and that hate that we're talking about. I'm not just a trans woman, I'm also asexual. So I don't have the sexual desires that a normal person has. I'm proud of this. It's very much part of who I am. When I go to the toilet, I'm going there to go to the toilet. I'm not too sure about anyone else in this world, but, I don't really want to be sharing a public restroom with anyone, regardless of gender. I just want to know that I'm safe going into there. I can go do what I need to do, wash my hands, and I can walk out. So I'm all in for single-use toilets. Who really wants to go to the toilet with someone else? Not me.
No, absolutely not.
Another thing, we're all just here to go to the toilet. We're in there for 3 seconds and then we're out and then it's done and it's over. And last time I checked, there's cubicles. No one's even going to see us for unless we're walking in or walking out.
But you know, though, that it's actually not about the toilets.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely
This is
not,
just
yeah.
a tool that they use, and it's also not about the kids. You know, like they use youth as a tool, they use toilets as a tool, they use women in sport as a tool, and really, it's just misogyny, it's transphobia, it's trans misogyny, and it's really just about attacking a group of people that they don't know actually much about, and yeah, it's a whole bigger discussion. Atomic, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so, you know, obviously we're just going to the toilet for, you know, that natural thing. My concern then lies, I suppose, with these people who are having these thoughts, like, you know, these people who think that they're the sorts of thoughts that people have when they go to the toilet when children are around. It's, I for one don't want to be climbing into the heads of these people.
It's projection.
It is, you know.
It says something about them
it's-
more than
If these are the thoughts that they're having about a person going to the toilet, you know, what other sort of thoughts are they having? Like, you know, are we the ones that really need to help, or are these the people that really should be getting the help? So,
Aaron?
Yeah, I was going to say as well, I forgot what I was going to say now.
That's right. Well, while you're thinking about that, I'll also add that from my experience and some of the experience that I've heard from other trans folks is that actually when we talk about toilets, a lot of trans folks, my experience was that I didn't use the toilet. All through primary school, I avoided the bathroom because it felt unsafe, and it was a really scary place for me. And so now on the occasion that I do need to use a public toilet, I'm in and I'm out. It is not a place
100%.
that I'm hanging around.
100%.
So, yeah, I think EJ was next.
Public toilets, at least for me, terrify me. I like to think I'm shitting myself while I'm shitting myself. I find it such an anxiety-inducing experience, and I think that's something that, you know, a lot of people don't realize is that, you know, for us, because of this whole debate that's come up, and also just because of general anxieties that we have in everyday life, going to the bathroom is just nerve-wracking. You're only focused on yourself, and you're literally just going in, doing your thing, getting out, and not thinking about it for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Aaron, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, coming back to what I was saying before. I remembered now. Yeah. The common thread between all these things, between bathroom bans, women's sports, all of those various different vectors of attack on trans men, and IDs as well. The common thread between all these things is that they are public. They are a part of public life. And that's really what the broader transphobic project is trying to find these different vectors to erase us from public life. Because if you can't see us in the public, then it's much easier to dehumanize us and push even further different things.
Yeah.
And even going down that path, they keep using these tiny little public aspects of our lives to go and use that as the attack vector. But that entire rhetoric has been used before. We saw it in the segregation of the US, right? It was never about the water fountains. It was never about the bus, where you sat on the bus. It was never about any of that. But that's the kind of point that they were using to attack us. And going back to like EJ's comment too about like going to the restroom, to a public bathroom, is terrifying. I ended up in a van on the way, like catching a lift from Sydney back to Victoria, and it's a 10-hour journey. I got as far as like 9 hours into this journey before I absolutely needed a bathroom, because I just refused to use a public bathroom on the side of the road or a service station or anything like that. I went to go in like Wodonga, and we went into the service station, and I wanted to use the gender neutral bathroom because I'm not comfortable in using the women's bathroom at this point in time. I am now, but that's a separate issue. We got to Wodonga, and I went to go use the gender neutral bathroom. The bathroom was locked because, and like, it wasn't being used, but it was just locked. And that's a really common thing for a lot of us, is even if a gender neutral bathroom does exist, the gendered bathrooms are public access. The neutral bathroom might be locked from access and we can't use it because because people are afraid it's going to get vandalized or whatever else. And it's just like, I just need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. We'll just let Aaron add to that, and then Kay and Atomic.
Yeah. So, following up to that with the locked bathrooms and stuff, like, a lot of it is, I think, anti-homeless as well. And because, usually gender-neutral toilets are also the disabled bathroom, which is quite a bit larger. And they will either gatekeep that because they're afraid of homeless people setting up, or they're afraid that someone, God forbid, who isn't disabled in a way that's diagnosed or visible is trying to use that bathroom. Like, but it's disabled. It's a disabled bathroom, like, even if you're not diagnosed, and just because you don't have a diagnosis of something doesn't mean you don't need that extra space or that layout or the railing or something, as well as it being the gender neutral bathroom as well. Like, it's just it's different. What I'm trying to say is it's different forms of oppression that I think are linked together as well. Because I think that's all really the same system oppressing everyone.
But it also highlights that if everyone's happy for all genders to use that, why can't all genders use the other cubicles?
Got to say, this is the longest I've ever talked about a toilet for.
Would you like to go first? Mine is a bit of a different topic.
So I just want to touch back onto like that pattern of behaviour you're talking about. Like, we're seeing it not just towards the rainbow community, and yes, we've seen these arguments time and time again throughout history. It's just that oppression of people being different. You're different, so we're going to oppress it. We don't want you being like that. We're not comfortable with you being in our society or in our place or in our space with you being like that. And I think as humans, we need to remember like our past, and we need to remember where we came from. And then we go back to the Great War, where 12 million lives were taken, slaughtered because simply they were different. Half because they simply practiced they had a different religious belief. We need to remember this. We need to learn and keep this with us every time we make decisions and change our system and move forward with life instead of taking a step backwards. We're already seeing that rhetoric here where we're identifying, trans people are identifying that this behaviour is not exclusive to us. It's across the board, whether it be ability or people of colour, different cultures. So we just need to be mindful that we're not just fighting this fight on our own.
So is the Great Wall actually dead people?
Actually, that ties really good to what I was about to say. I think I would like to highlight also, like, we talked a lot about online and how a lot of the hatred is online, but also for like communities of color, a lot of it is not online. It's not just online. Like, unfortunately, colonization has erased a lot of the very queer, very trans culture of our ancestors. And so now, unfortunately, having this conversation about being trans and about being queer, unfortunately, there's connection to how it's like a Western concept. It's not our discussion to have. But that's not true, right? Unfortunately, a lot of this very important, very diverse things that have always existed, like from the indigenous community here to like wherever in the world, like queer and trans people have always existed. So I think unfortunately for a lot of these communities, this transphobia is also in person. It's with your family, it's with your friends who use this label of culture as if it's not something, we can't talk about this. This is just not part of our culture. And that's oftentimes a really difficult conversation to have for a trans person, because you are having to discuss these things not just with anonymous people online, but you have to talk about it to your parents, your grandparents, and
even just going down that path, like it is in person and it's constant too, and like just the small little things. People will often make the comment that, oh, it just happened this one time. But for many of us, no, it's happening all the time. And it's the small little microaggressions and such like using the wrong pronouns or whatever. And if like when it's constant, it's constantly building and it's constantly affecting people, and it gets to the point where it's very triggering over time. And that's something that a lot of folks don't quite realize, is they think that it's a one-off, but for you, it's not.
It's cumulative.
It's a cumulative, yeah, for sure.
Aaron?
And yeah, like just following up that, like I've also had a lot of experiences where people like they will accidentally misgender me or refer to me as my dead name or something like that, but they'll keep doing it and keep doing like,
Yeah.
well, I can't believe you're being like one of those trans people by calling me out for this thing. I've just done this one time, and then you try and give them examples, and they're like, "Oh, you're really reaching." I mean, I don't know.
Just
like,
do it back. That's what I do.
Well, I think it highlights that to that person, it's so insignificant. And I think that that's the thing that people don't realize, that these small little cuts that they're doing to us, and whether it's intentional or not intentional, they don't realize that it's all adding up. And to them, it just washes away, and they've made a mistake. They're awkward for a moment and they just move on. But for us, somebody's misgendered us here and there and there and there. And the amount of times that we can offset that. And I guess that's an important thing too, is that when we have our allies and our community that keep affirming who we are and reaffirming who we are, then that does offset a little bit of that behavior. Although that behavior still hurts every time, every little cut.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And another thing I want to add as well, like it's so little effort to change how you call, especially someone that you're not particularly close with, like a coworker or even just someone you're crossing paths with briefly. Like it's so little effort for you to change the words you use, or even just correct yourself if you get it wrong, compared to the amount of pain that you would be causing by not making that small effort.
Yeah. And just going on to that too, like if someone's constantly doing it, it very much shows that you don't respect me. Like, please, make the effort. If you care about someone and you love someone, like, make the effort, apologize just quickly and then move on. But like, if you're constantly doing it and you're not making the effort, and if someone does bring you up on it and you're getting combative to that, that's probably not the best response.
If someone's doing that, they don't love you.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to add to that, and then we'll come to EJ. Yep.
Yeah, so like it is also just like a quick sorry, and then you move on. You don't have to give us an entire huge apology or explain why. Like it's okay, we get it. Like just apologize and move on, and we will appreciate that a lot more than if like either you just ignore it or if you make a huge song and dance about it, because it happens.
Yeah, and stop drawing the attention to you, and
it's
just
not about
apologize and move on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it goes on like that lasting feeling that you have when those misgenderings or those microaggressions happen, that people don't realize is like that lack of affirmation then has you question every interaction you're having from then on. If you've had one person on a day that's misgendered you, you all of a sudden go, what is everyone thinking about me? And it, even when it's unintentional and it happens, I totally get it. And everyone makes mistakes, but at the same time it still definitely leaves you with that little pit in your stomach going, maybe I'm not succeeding at what I thought I originally was. Maybe I'm not seeing what other people see when I look in the mirror. And I think that it's something for people to think about is, again, those microaggressions, those little things that you think it's just one tiny little comment you've made, but it leaves a lasting impression on that person's whole day or whole week, because they're always constantly questioning themselves. And so if you do something positive, it pushes them in a positive way. But if you do something negative, they're stuck in that negative mindset and negative aspect.
Love that. Thanks Jay.
I think something that's really important again to highlight here is we have obviously a very diverse panel here with all of us, and something that's sticking out to me with this is that every single person here is different. We all have a different resilience. What hurts us, what cuts us, is all different.
Yeah.
Someone comes up and misgenders me, I'm literally going to be like, correct them and walk off. I don't care if King Giles walks in here. I'll correct him. That's just who I am. That's the resilience that I have inside of myself. But that doesn't dismiss your concerns. And I think this is really important for the people out there who are listening to this to understand this, because what's important to me might not be important to someone else, but what's important to them might not be important. It might cut harder. Mm-hmm. It might hurt them harder. They might be going through a lot more. We don't know. We do not know what someone else is going through unless we sit down with them and we take the time to talk to them and find out. And look, if people aren't going to be interested in doing that, maybe evaluate whether or not that person's worth your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aaron?
Yeah, and on the topic of correcting people, it does cause it's a confrontation, I think. And that can have consequences as well, either perceived or literal. So if you have social anxiety, or you're just not feeling particularly comfortable or particularly assertive that day, I think it's more than fair that you don't correct them, and that you expect them to correct themselves, because they are the one who made the mistake, especially if you've given them multiple warnings or something.
I don't think it's our responsibility to have to correct people.
Yeah.
I think that people who we know, particularly those in our inner circle, they should know that when we're misgendered, it hurts. When we're dead named, it hurts. Anything
the dead name bit gets me. I hate that.
Anything that takes away from our affirmation hurts us, right? Mm. So for those people, we shouldn't have to mention it. They should recognize when they've made a mistake, and it's the onus on them. Mm. If they're finding it hard to learn a new pronoun or to learn a new name, do the work. As humans, people are learning all kinds of stuff all the time. It's not really that hard. If you need to write it on your hand for a week so that you get it right, do that. Do what works for you, because it's your responsibility to get it right. It's not ours. We have every right to affirm our name and to affirm our pronouns. And I think it's everyone else's responsibility to keep up. EJ?
And I think with that, advocacy comes with strength. And so we do, a lot of trans people absolutely do want to fight for themselves and do want to, stand up for themselves and sometimes have that confrontation. But that only comes with strength. And not everyone is strong on every day that they exist in their lives, and we will all have days where we aren't strong enough to stand up for ourselves, and that's where strong allies and that's where just general people being kind comes in clutch. It really because at the times where you're not confident to stand up for yourself, that there's probably someone around you who can stand up for you, and who probably will, because they care for you and they respect your feelings and they know that it will hurt you.
Beautiful. And I suppose to add some positive to it, I am out in our community. I play cricket with a local club here, and I've had no issues. You're talking a club that has 4 teams, quite a big history within Central Victoria. Predominantly full of men. There's from all walks of life, and they've been respectful and good about it. And there's a couple of times where someone might refer to me as he, all right, but we get this banter going on where I'll just correct them, and just give them a little bit of a hard time. But that's obviously because of the position I'm in. That's my mental health, my resilience. It's the community that is around me.
And your relationship with others.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that, if you go into a shop somewhere, and I know this might seem a little bit unorthodox to a lot of people, you go to a shop and you're not happy with that service, you're entitled to go somewhere else. Think the same thing with life. If you're not happy with those people who are around you, how many millions of people are in Australia? How many people are in this world where you can go and find your own people, find your own self, and be happy? You know, and that's what we need to start doing. We need to start moving, talking more with our feet, move with our feet. Go find your people.
Yeah.
Abby, you want to add, and then Aaron.
Like, one of the other things too is, like, when we're talking about like correcting ourselves, it's exhausting to be constantly on alert and having to constantly have that comment and going, hey, it's actually she, her. It's actually Abby, for example. Like, please stop using, like, if you're constantly having to have that conversation, it's exhausting and you burn yourself out on it. And it brings me back to EJ's comment about, like, that's what allies are for. Like, allies, we need you to be able to stand up for us as well. We can't do it all on our own because it is exhausting and we are just getting so very tired from it. So if we have somebody that can stand up for us, especially when we're not in the room, if the comment is being made, like, for example, at work, and it's two of your colleagues having a conversation and you're not there, and if someone's going to dead name you and then your colleague walks up and goes, actually, just makes the comment, actually, no, it's Abby. We need to get this right because we don't want to belittle or make Abby feel like she's not welcome here, right? It would be really, it's so much better when allies can speak up on your behalf and you don't have to be constantly fighting for yourself. It's so much better to have an ally.
And when you practice it, like, allies, find it can find it difficult to move into that space and know how to do that. But what I've found is it's really easy. If somebody is talking about somebody and that person isn't in the room and you're talking to somebody and somebody has that conversation and they misgender them, it's easy for you to just make a comment about that person, add to the conversation, but make a point of using the correct pronouns.
Absolutely.
And what I've noticed is that the other person goes, oh, yeah. And you don't even need to correct them in that space. You're just saying it and they correct themselves and go, oh, yeah. And it just helps them to remember without even needing to call it out.
Repetition.
Yeah.
Repetition.
Aaron, and then Sammy?
Yeah, I was kind of going to expand on that bit and say that, like, allies are so important. Like, trans people alone just do not make it up enough of the population to really enact much change on our own. Like, I think it's something like 1% of the population, and that's just not enough to make a difference. Allies...
That's only the out trans.
True, of course. But I'm speaking, like, it would still be a very small fraction of society. A lot of people in general, but a small fraction. And allies make up the rest of the people who can, for example, vote on stuff to help us, who can stand up for us when we're not there. You allies are so important.
And appreciated too.
And appreciated.
Yeah.
For example, one time I had someone to cross out my dead name on a piece of paper every time it was put up in the office and put my actual name.
What?
Yeah. So it was just an automatic printout for the day at my workplace. And he would cross out my name and write Aaron. And that's fantastic. That's huge.
I heard it the other way around. No. I thought, oh my God, somebody's deliberately crossing out your name and writing your dead name.
No. Sorry.
Sounds like an employer has to take the time to
I wouldn't be happy with that. But no, they were crossing out my dead name because legally that's what everything was still under. And writing my chosen name, I didn't know who that person was until I left. But because they were just like, no, it's the right thing to do.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And people like that is so important because that person wasn't looking to virtue signal or look for praise. That person was doing it because it was the right thing to do. As far as I know, that person didn't even really like me, but it was the right thing to do. Yeah, and that matters so much.
Yeah. Sammy?
Well, I mean, I think we could probably spend like all day on misgendering or dead naming, but I think there's sort of issues that the trans community has always faced and probably always will. But the reason that there's been sort of maybe a recent increase in it is because of the politicization of our identities and the fact that we're sort of being used as political warfare, like our existence is a tool to help people get into power. Like they're able to project the narrative that we have some sort of villain or dark intention with our existence when it's simply just a way of living and being happy. And I think that that's why there's such a new confidence that people are finding to treat us with malice and cruelty, even in those like smaller microaggressional ways. And I think that that's sort of how we make change, is we really have to go at this from an angle of reminding people that, like, I'm a transgender person. That doesn't tell you everything about me. That doesn't tell you everything about my beliefs and outlook on the world. And what you hear about me on the news is not who I am.
Yeah,
Prejudice.
it's a really great point that often when people meet us one-to-one, they actually really connect with us. We're actually decent people. And
Might
so
even be human.
this idea about transgender people is an idea that people can really attack. But when they meet us as humans, it's a real deeper connection point, and they go, oh, actually, you're not that villain that I read about or that, somebody told me about. It's, very different story.
And I think that points out the importance of, if you're able to and if you have the strength, being openly trans, at least to the right people, helps that advocacy in the spaces where it's needed, where people are often on the fence or they don't think they know anyone who's trans, and then being able to talk about your own story, and it then builds. All of a sudden, these people are looking at the news and they're not just seeing this trans narrative that they're not connected to, but all of a sudden they go, I see this thing on the news and I think about my co-worker EJ. I think about my friend, Erin. I think about my, family member Zara. And all of a sudden you're putting in these ideas of, all of a sudden, this is actually hurting someone I know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the strength in being openly trans. And obviously it is, being openly trans is a massive battle in and of itself. And everyone has their own journey on figuring out if that's right for them, if that's even a thing at all that they're going to do in their lifetime, or if it's something that they're always going to be. It's not something to say that people who aren't openly trans are wrong, because it's their own battles, but I think that the people who are openly trans help push the narrative that we're humans.
Abby, you want to add to this, and then we'll come to a topic?
Yeah. So when I was really early on in my transition, actually, I was so uncomfortable with presenting femme in the workplace, right? It was during the pandemic. I had to be on a client site, and it was a pretty masculine client, just in terms of what they did. But the being openly trans makes such a big impact on other people, because you have no idea who is looking at you. I'm walking through this office. It's a very, very masculine environment, and I am afraid to be here. But it's a client, and I can't just leave. And then I see someone walking through with a trans lanyard around their neck. And I'm like, oh, wait, there's other people like that here? That's so helpful right now. And it gave me so much another level of comfort in myself to basically go, oh, I can actually be myself here. So that just wearing, like, it's the simple symbols of trans inclusion, right? That means that even if you're not aware of someone that's watching, there are always people watching, and people that may end up being trans themselves. And it's just like that level of safety that comes from seeing somebody else who is visibly trans or visibly queer in a workplace makes a massive difference.
Visibly trans, or even visibly an ally. It's, both valuable.
So I suppose it goes back to, providing safe spaces, letting people explore if they are or not trans. Like we don't know. Like, why, if a person's not trans, why should we sit there and dictate, well, they can't explore or experiment? You know, that's what life's about. It's about letting people explore and try different things on and, you know, seeing what's comfortable, what's not comfortable. So as allies, they can help produce those spaces. You know, it's wonderful to see in recent years that there are a lot of people around wearing lanyards for the rainbow identity. You know, you can go down to the magistrate's court, you can walk down through town and see people, public servants wearing these. You know, maybe we can get a police car covered in a rainbow. You know, I think there was one going around on social media from America, I think, that they have one for that. So, you know, but I think there is a lot of positives moving forward. I think we still need to keep standing together, creating those safe spaces to stop us from going backwards, to allow people to explore, to be safe, you know, at work, at home, in general public. So
Beautiful. We're just coming to the end of our episode, but Aaron just wanted to add a little
I
bit.
think this is probably a good thing to actually finish up on.
Yeah.
So seeing those symbols of pride and of it being a safe place, or if not a safe place, a safe person, is huge. The amount of times, especially like Abby said, early transition, that I was in places I thought were enemy territory, for lack of a better term, and just seeing that symbol of, oh, there is at least one person here that I can trust, at least a little bit. And it completely changes the perspective on the whole thing. So, allies, you are valuable if you're listening to this.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Display
you.
the colours, be proud.
Yes.
be human.
Yeah.
Be human, be proud, be an ally, be trans, be all of it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for our panel for episode 2. And thank you for joining us to listen in. We hope you've learnt a lot from that. And we look forward to seeing you in episode 3.
Bye, babe.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
I just do what I do.